When J.D. Vance entered Owen's Diner in Springfield, Ohio, he was both familiar and foreign to the townspeople. The faint flicker of the neon sign, the smells inside, and the quiet unease behind the preparation of food all seemed to mock the situation J.D. was in. The kitchen appliances, making noise while preparing breakfast for the regulars, only added to the discomfort. The inside of the diner was a place where the routine of the townspeople unfolded, with traces of memories at every corner. On the walls were old, yellowed Polaroid photos showing children born here in the summers and elderly people who had passed away in the winters. It was a place steeped in the past, but now everything was different. It was clear to everyone in the diner that J.D. was there. For him, it was a place to take a break, a getaway, a chance to escape the daily hustle and bustle for just a few hours. But slowly, the criticisms, political statements, and feelings of inadequacy began to grow in his mind. As he stepped into the diner, a few eyes glanced at him indifferently. A few seconds later, the change in the waitress's expression caught everyone's attention. There was hesitation, a silence, but deep. The waitress had greeted him with a warm smile when he first entered, but as soon as she recognized him, that smile quickly vanished. It was just a brief moment of hesitation, but J.D. noticed it. His eyes read the change in her face, a momentary hesitation followed by thick silence. "I'll eat in," he said, but the unease in him didn't go away. At other tables, familiar eyes stared at him indifferently. People whispered to one another. Some avoided his gaze while others tried to figure out what was going on behind the waitress. His eyes, though a part of the town, now felt foreign to the people of this town. It had become a habit. When a politician set foot in this town, silence spoke volumes. No matter how much they smiled, the gap between them grew deeper. After the waitress asked him to sit, she inquired, "Will you be dining in or taking out?" But the reaction she gave wasn't as quick or sure as it should have been. She shook her head slightly, paused for a few seconds, then ran a hand through her hair, as if thinking. Just as J.D. was about to speak, the waitress suddenly went toward the kitchen. Time seemed to slow down. From behind the door to the kitchen, muffled voices rose, but it meant nothing. This was an unusual place. The townspeople's faces were blank, and as they watched him, J.D. tried to relax. "Is there a problem?" he asked, the strange feeling in his throat building up. The waitress's face hardened, and she said clearly, "We can't serve you tonight." There was a pause for a few seconds, and then J.D. noticed the unease on her face. "Why?" he asked. This sentence made the silence even thicker. At that moment, the attention of the townspeople grew. No one responded, only their eyes were on him. The uncertainty in their gaze told a hidden story. J.D.'s inner conflict grew increasingly intense. On one hand, there was a man who had spent years trying to solve politics and public relations, and on the other, a politician seen as guilty in the eyes of the townspeople. On one hand, a leader trying to speak to the people, and on the other, a man caught between the expectations of these very people. Eyes were on him, patient yet watchful. The anger and bitterness within him were pushing him to raise his voice, but he was trying to restrain himself. "Don't you need to explain yourself?" he said. Slowly, he sat at his table. No one responded, and the waitress remained silent. A few others were watching silently as well. He took a deep breath. As the tension in his mind grew, he placed his hands firmly on the table and added resolutely, "Can I speak with your manager?" This sentence shifted the atmosphere in the diner. The relevant person seemed to be avoiding what the townspeople had said. The tension grew even more intense. However, this was not a rebellion. J.D. simply wanted to speak with these people, to understand them. Even though they were closer to other political views, they had to admit that he had taken the right steps. Eventually, an older man named Don entered. Don stood directly in front of him, showing a slight pride in every glance as he faced J.D. This wasn't a fall or resistance. Rather, it was the story of a complex person. Don fixed his gaze on J.D. for another moment, took a deep breath, and then sat down at the table. The atmosphere in the diner intensified in an instant. Don's face showed a conflict, on one hand, his prejudices against J.D., and on the other, an internal dilemma shaped by the reactions of the people around him. On one hand, there was the town's discontent, and on the other, the values he believed in with determination. This was an opportunity to voice all the subconscious reactions of the townspeople. J.D. noticed the dilemma Don was caught in. Now he was waiting for the right moment. Don, he said, his voice patient yet firm, I'm here because I just want to listen to people. We're all human. We both have histories, don't we? The townspeople, politics. But there's something, we're missing an opportunity to build a deeper connection between people. Most people are questioning why I'm here, but no one is looking at the real reasons. Don looked into JD's eyes and thought for a moment. He knew JD was right, but he didn't want to contradict the opinions of the townspeople. Somewhere inside there was a desire for change, but he knew how difficult it would be. You really don't understand, Don said, his voice slightly hoarse. Put yourself in our shoes. Over the years, people have come and gone, the same promises, the same disappointments, but you're still here, being judged. Everyone's eyes are on you. JD leaned slightly toward Don. But this is where you need to see the difference, he said. If we truly want real change in this situation, it's not just about hearing the same promises, it's about facing them. Only when we're all together can this change truly make sense. For me, understanding this town, listening to the people who really live here, is important. For a moment, there was silence. Everyone in the diner was listening intently to JD and Don's conversation. The sounds slowly began to rise among the curious looks. JD wasn't just defending his thoughts. He was also trying to understand Don's emotional dilemma. Something was beginning to change in that moment. It wasn't just the words. The meaning of that moment was starting to tell the townspeople something. Don stayed silent for a moment, his head in his hands. He didn't know what to do, but JD's words had started to make him think in a different way. Don's eyes slowly changed. The steel-like sharpness in his gaze softened a little. Maybe you're right, he said. Everyone here is tired of seeing someone like you. But maybe the townsfolk still don't believe in change. But maybe we should listen to ourselves for a moment. When JD heard Don's confession, he felt a brief sense of relief. It was as if the emptiness in his thoughts had been filled. He knew that everyone needed to let go of the burdens of the past and come together to talk. This was the moment to come together and start anew. He slowly turned his eyes. The reactions of the townsfolk were slowly changing. The tension was giving way to uncertainty. Yes, maybe the people here have been wanting to see change for years, Don. But change isn't something promised only by big politicians. Change happens with the townsfolk, with regular people. It happens when we all take steps together. For a moment, everything was silent. At that moment, something was changing in the eyes of the townsfolk. After a few seconds, someone spoke. This man is trying to make a difference. Maybe we should notice that. And after that moment, Don slowly nodded. There was still uncertainty in his eyes, but there was also acceptance. Mary, he called, bring this man a menu. The atmosphere in the diner suddenly softened. The voices of everyone began to rise again. JD walked toward his table. The kitchen started working again. There was a medium level of tension, but it was a sign that the townsfolk were ready for change. Mary brought JD his menu. The food here is good, but the coffee's a bit strong, she smiled. JD smiled back and opened the menu to start ordering. This was not just a lunch, but a turning point. The townsfolk had started talking again. Among their conversations, a different understanding was emerging. The dialogue between JD and Don symbolized a new opportunity for both the townsfolk and JD to start fresh. It was something beyond words. Real change lay in listening to people, respecting and understanding each other's perspectives. The atmosphere in the diner slowly returned to its former state. The tension gave way to relaxation. The anxieties were replaced by hopeful looks. We all have a story, we all have struggles, and most importantly, we all need more to move forward together. Those who learn to listen to themselves and understand others have taken the first step toward true change. If this video has added something beyond your thoughts, please don't forget to like it. Share your thoughts with us, and let's deepen this discussion together. If you subscribe to our channel, we will be together again in the next video. Remember, sometimes strength is hidden in taking a step back and seeing the perspective of the person in front of you. See you in the next video.